Hey everybody, I'm Seth V for the Knife Center, and these are the latest and greatest new knives to hit our shelves. Let's take a look. Kicking things off this week with a new knife we have not seen in quite some time from ProTech. This right here is the Whiskers Magic 2. And as you can see, it is an exceptionally clean design, even by ProTech's usually very clean standards. There's just two pieces of hardware on one side, the pivot on the other, and two screws holding in the pocket. It is a surprisingly sizable knife with 3.8 inches of blade, 154 cm steel. Comes in right now at $340. But let me show you what makes the Magic 2, well, what gives it its magic.
Magical.
Yeah, exactly. So we're gonna close it up and then say the magic word, Gesundheit. It comes open. No, it's not actually voice activated, although that really might actually be magic. The trick here is in the scales that slide apart. You can just see it, maybe make it out here at the butt of the handle where the lanyard attachment point is. You can see that split there, and each handle kind of slides independently. So Tom's is gonna get some great B-roll, I am sure, but you can just pick up the slight movement there that allows the lock back, the lock bar for the lock back to rise up and either unlock or deploy the knife automatically. In practice, this is actually a pretty easy to use system once you know the trick, because you have a lot of purchase to get that sliding started with the pocket clip. So in an ordinary grip, or as you take it out from the pocket, you're already set up to deploy that knife, as long as you have the right leverage at play there. It's yeah, like I said, once you know the trick, it's quite easy, comes open very nicely. And it's the kind of thing that you can hand to somebody and they will just have no idea how to use it until you show them. What else to say about this thing? Yeah, I mentioned the size. It is surprisingly big. From pictures, at least, I was under the impression it was a little bit smaller, but you can see plenty of handle there. I've got extra handle real estate on both sides. Yeah, nice for all sorts of grips, and I think it pairs really nicely with this beautiful drop point blade profile. Another piece of magic from ProTech. This is the original, the Whiskers Magic 1, or just the Magic, if you will. The trick here is a little easier to see, and the biggest clue is going to be this bolster. It's obviously a different material. It's got a bit of texture to it. You might have already guessed that this is a bolster release automatic. So you simply slide that up, and the knife comes closed and deploys easily. Very cool. This is quite a bit more compact than the Whiskers 2. Comes in at $280 and also features 154 cm blade steel. Despite the back lock that holds everything together here, these are constructed like every other ProTech in that they have the kind of two-piece aluminum handles, no separate backspacer, very, very clean. The bolster here helps even hide the pivot hardware on this one. So it just, for an automatic knife, it's exceptionally classy, and you've got a nice elegant drop point blade to make it quite useful as well. I like the symmetry of this one when closed as well. The shape of the handle here gives it a very pleasant, just kind of, is that right at the midpoint? Not quite, not quite. But visually, I think it looks very sort of symmetrical and gives you a little bit of added purchase in the hand as well. As you can see, the handle's much smaller, but yeah, I think it's quite comfortable. Very nice automatic, I don't want to call it a dress knife, but an elegant automatic knife. Okay, moving on to a couple of new knives from GiantMouse, the first of which is dropping today. It is this new limited edition of the Clyde. So the Clyde here is equipped with 20 CV blade steel, Denim micarta handles, comes in at $175, and also has brass backspacer and thumb stud. Really, really cool. I like the Clyde a lot. It pulls off a neat trick in that it has a trailing point blade, but still folds up into a fairly straight and slim profile. Very efficient use of space here to make that work, but as you can see, the knife was going to carry pretty deeply in your pocket. It's going to be a polite companion there, not hogging too much space. But you flip that thing out and the upswept tip of the blade just makes you feel like you have a lot of knife to work with. In fact, it's only a 3-inch blade, but yeah, like I said, all that belly there and the upsweep to the tip makes it feel a little bit larger in use. The ergonomics are quite simple. Just some angles, a couple curves. I think it works well. The wire pocket clip helps keep things comfortable. You know, some people complain that they feel a little squishy. As compared to Spyderco's wire pocket clips, for example, I think this one feels sturdier, but it still has a little bit of give, which I actually like because it makes it disappear more in the feel of the handle. You know, it's not some protuberance causing a hot spot there. It just kind of gets out of the way as you're using it, which I always appreciate. Nice liner lock here, nested, looks very classy. Locks up solid, flicks out super smooth. I believe these have ball bearings in the pivot. Let's check here. No, in fact, they have bronze washers. Very nice, very smooth in that case. I guess I should have guessed, it doesn't really drop shut like you'd find with bearings, but yeah, flicks open real smooth, that's for sure. So if you like the look of this Denim micarta version, do act quickly. This is limited edition. We expect it'll sell out sooner rather than later. It's a numbered run of 200, and that's across all of GiantMouse's dealers. So I don't know how many we got, but I doubt they'll be around for all that long. Next up is the Nimbus V3. And this one is substantially changed from the other versions of the Nimbus because it has a Scandinavian grind, S90V blade steel, and G10 handles. This comes in at $225, and I really like that they committed to a true Scandinavian grind geometry. Unlike some other kind of quote-unquote Scandi ground folding knives, this one really has that thin behind the edge carving geometry. You can see there's just a hint of micro bevel there at the edge, but it's going to give you what you want out of a Scandi grind with its exceptional carving performance, tenacious kind of edge aggressiveness, and you know, you sacrifice some slicing performance to achieve those characteristics, but hey, the other versions of the Nimbus are still available, so if you want that, you can go for those. Very cool knife here. Also, like a Puukko, I think the handle is made to be used in many, many different grips. It's got quite a bit of sculpting to it to give it just a nice soft shape that nestles in your hand. It's a bit wider than many other GiantMouse designs, which again brings it back to that Puukko character. It feels like it's made to work, to be comfortable under extended use, and I really like that character in it. One thing to note about this that I'll share with you just as I have this in hand is that the Nimbus is not the most fidget-friendly of GiantMouse's designs. I think it has to do with how deeply the deployment hole is kind of buried in the handle there, coupled with the handle's thickness. You really have to be deliberate, put your thumb in there, roll it out. It's certainly easy to do. It's not a difficult to deploy knife, but it's just not the kind of fidget-friendly, flick all day, open-closed type of feel to it that you might expect from some of their other designs.
It's the grizzled old man who's got nothing to prove.
Yeah, I actually like that. Grizzled. It's a pre-grizzled young man. Because it's still kind of cool, like in its silhouette, you know, it's got that modern, a little bit of angularity to it, a little edgier than his grandpa, but I think this knife contains an old soul.
Just seen some stuff.
Seen some stuff, yeah. Speaking of knives that are inspired by outdoor fixed blades, this next one is the Petrified Fish Viper, which claims to be inspired by a Nessmuck. Now, we'll get to my commentary on that in a minute, but let me start by saying that this has K110 steel and comes in at $52.99. K110, if you didn't know, is sort of a brand name version of D2. So K110 is made by Brawler, I believe. You know, you can expect performance similar to D2, but it's going to be much more consistent. So I can see what they were going for when they described this blade shape as a Nessmuck. I can see what they were going for because it does have a continuous curve to the belly. It's nice and broad, like a Nessmuck. But I don't really see the Nessmucky kind of undulation to the overall design. Tell me if I'm off base here, but I actually think this is a little more similar to the Shein Cutter. The Bob Lum Spyderco was the one who made that design famous. I see a bit more of that in this, especially with the drop to the handle. Nomenclature aside, what we have here is a comfortable, very slicey, efficient type of everyday folder. And with a crossbar lock, it's also strong, safe, secure, all that good stuff, easy to use. I like the handle comfort too. You know, in terms of the Nessmuck vibes, it does deliver a little bit with that contoured G10 handle. It's quite nice to use and feels like it would support a good full-fisted grip. For carry, you've got a wire pocket clip here. It's ambidextrous. Nice hidden lanyard attachment point there. Just a cool, kind of different flavor of design from Petrified Fish. I like the boldness that they have with a lot of their designs, so I guess that's here, but that big belly is going to be nice to use on long slices. I think it's going to be surprisingly aggressive on a pull cut because of that pronounced negative angle to the edge. It's really going to capture things as you pull through them. And it's quite easy to operate with a big deployment hole and a smooth crossbar lock. Okay, we've got 3 new knives from MKM on the table, so let's take a look. This right here is a totally retooled version of the Miura. So what they did from the original Miura, if you remember, was a very premium offering in full titanium. It was an integral. It was MKM's first integral button lock. It had a sculpted titanium pocket clip. They shot for the moon with the Miura, and here they've retooled it to make it a little more affordable at $219, or I think just under $200 for a non-coated version. And arguably, I think they even upgraded the materials because we've got MagnaCut blade steel here. Pretty nice combination, you know, more affordable, arguably better blade steel. It's lighter weight. It's I hope that it encourages some people to give the Miura a chance because the bones of this design are so sweet. I've always been a big fan of it. It's a very utilitarian kind of knife with the reverse tanto blade shape. Great for utility cutting, great for using that tip, very controllable. Comes in at an excellent size with 2.7 inches of blade. Folds up very compactly, carries really politely with that tail-mounted deep carry pocket clip. I like all the detail on the handle, you know, the checkering, or is that checkering? I guess maybe we'll call it diamond milling. A little bit of texture, but not too aggressive. Still feels kind of smooth and elegant. And it's an integral, so it has a solidity to it that is almost difficult to describe. Even though it's small, put it in hand, put it to use, and it feels rock solid. The button lock here is exceptionally smooth, and for deployment you have these miniature ambidextrous thumb studs. Once you get used to them, they're no problem at all to use. You can even reverse flick it open if you get your fingertips just right. I love to see a great design become even more affordable. This version is affordable and arguably even better. So, way to go MKM. The Miura is well worth a chance. This next knife is all new. Let me introduce you to the Ice. The MKM Ice, very cool. I'm struggling to find the words or what to compare this to exactly. I'm seeing a lot of influences here. The blade shape reminds me of a kiridashi, which is like a, kind of a Japanese style utility knife. Very perfectly straight edge, like a Warncliffe, but a bit of an angle to it that brings the tip up, which makes it also quite useful for kind of just straight ahead penetrating cuts. The jimping up here on the spine encourages you to get your fingers out there for detailed work, really putting that tip to good use. And deployment is achieved through a nice front flipper. Now, front flippers aren't to everyone's taste necessarily, but this one it's got the geometry just right to make it quite easy to use. I'm digging it. I'm seeing a bit of utility knife, a bit of dress knife in this. I think the carbon fiber version here is the classiest. Comes in at $174.90, which also makes it the most expensive. But you can get it in micarta. I believe G10 is available. A couple different flavors to suit your taste. The blade steel here is MagnaCut. So you've got the toughness you might want in a work knife, but yeah, like I said, there's a lot of stuff going on here. I don't think it's big enough to be a true work knife with just 2.6 inches of blade, but the handle's a bit extended because of that finger choil, so you've got a good full-size grip. I have no problem getting all 4 fingers on there. I like that even with the choil, they've given you another just teeny tiny sharpening choil, both to protect your fingers and make it easier to maintain that edge. A lot of little details here come together to make quite a compelling overall package that does a lot of things really well. Okay, the last new release from MKM this week is the fanciest little Yipper you've ever seen. This right here is Ben Peterson's Yipper design, and it is decked out in Damascus and marbled carbon fiber. I always struggle to say marbled carbon fiber.
You mumble on marble?
Mumble a little bit on marble.
Well, take the marbles out of your mouth.
If I can mumble through it, this comes in at $359.90. If you want the Yipper but fancier, that's what you get here. I think it definitely turns up the classiness on this design. Turns it into practically a dress knife, But man, that crossbar looks actually really sweet. It's still got the bones of a hard-working knife. I'll say that. Nice, simple handle ergonomics. Plenty of length for a nice grip. It's thin, so it feels maneuverable, but not delicate. You've got full-length liners that give the handle a little bit of mass to it, so even though it's carbon fiber, it doesn't feel particularly lightweight, though it's certainly not heavy either. The Damascus blade has a nice high contrast look to it. You can really see those layers just popping out of the structure there. Very beautiful, and as you might expect from something this fancy, these are a limited edition. So it comes with some special packaging. They're individually numbered. This one is 18 out of 100. So yeah, if you want to see the peak of Yipper looks and performance, this is the one for you. Very, very nicely done.
Yuppie Yipper.
Oh, I already put the knife down, but I wish I said that. Speaking of fancy, I'm going to unfurl my fists to show you the Brawler from who else but Andre de Villiers, ADV Tactical. Unmistakably his work. You can just tell from the pure swagger of this thing that ADV made this, and kind of like that Yipper, he really turned up the dial on the fancy factor here. So let me tell you what we're working with. We've got 3.9 inches of M390 steel with a gorgeous hand-rubbed satin finish, a full titanium frame lock with very sharply milled, not sharp to the touch, but just like crystal clear kind of a milling pattern on it. Beautiful, almost jewel-like in the light there. These come in at $599, and they feel like an expensive and fancy knife, because it is. But you want something for that money, right? So This definitely delivers on the bling factor for sure. And because it's an ADV design, you've got kind of thoroughbred tactical roots here too. I mean, it locks into the hand. You've got all these finger scallops, you know, the kind of ergonomic features to keep you locked on, even though the handle is somewhat smooth to the touch, very refined feeling. But yeah, definitely not going anywhere with a firm grip on this thing. Kind of a cool blade shape too, you know, got a lot going on. This kind of harpoon clip with a little extra thumb ramp around the thumb studs. These oversized custom thumb studs are very cool. They make it super easy to deploy with a thumb flick there. I imagine they would even work well if you were wearing gloves. Nice sculpted pocket clip here too. He's even gone to the trouble of hiding the hardware there. So it's gonna have a very clean presentation in the pocket. Oh, one other thing I'm noticing as I'm looking at it from this angle, he's also hidden a roller ball bearing right there in the pocket clip. And if you've ever used one of those types of pocket clips, you'll know that it really does make it easier to use. You know, that bearing helps it roll over your hem to keep it in place there, even if it's got some strong tension. Classy is one word for this. It might not be the right word, but there are elements of this design that are very classy, even though this is a huge and intimidating titanium frame lock. Next up is a spin on an RMJ favorite. This right here is the Combat Asia. So this shares the same handle as the RMJ Combat Africa, which had a clip point blade shape. But as you can see here, we've got a Tanto. Nice little spin on the design. I think it could be even a shade more tactical, if you will. You know, a Tanto blade gives you the advantage of extra tip strength because it has a whole separate grind for the tip that allows you to kind of either reinforce or tweak the geometry there for more strength. These feel pretty similar in terms of the tip to the Combat Africa, but you know, there might be a little more meat up there. I think it's gonna have a little more mass up there, so if you were to chop with this, I think this would be the one I would choose. The handle is quite comfortable. It's got a bit of a drop to it that helps that tip kind of stay on target, points it down a little bit and forward as you are thrusting with this thing. Of course, we've got integrated guards there, little short top guard and a more substantial bottom guard to keep your hand in place. The handle's not oversized, but I've got a little extra real estate here to work with, so I think I'd be comfortable using this with gloves. You know, RMJ is their whole company puts tactical considerations first. Almost everything they make is designed for either, you know, ultra concealment or all-out tactical performance. These are made for operators. You know, that happens to make them very tough, very capable knives for everyone. But, you know, they make no bones about designing for those people first. And a design like this, I think you can see it, right? I mean, yes, it's got a lot of style with the milled fuller there and their signature kind of grooved primary grinds. But yeah, all you have to do is pick it up to realize that this is a knife that means business. So I haven't shared the price yet, which is $425, and the materials, which in this case is 80 CRV2 carbon steel. Very tough stuff. I think it's an excellent choice for a knife that they expect and hope for you to put some hard work into. As you might expect with such a tactical first brand, right here they've given a nice Kydex sheath to go with it. A little bit of a retention strap there. Clicks in very solidly, and a pull-to dot strap. I like the kind of matched drop loop here. I believe these are MOLLE compatible straps, and if you carry this on your belt, it's gonna be very comfortable. You know, it's not gonna be poking up in your side. Gonna carry nice and low for easy access. Okay, the biggest knife on the table today. is the Becker BK21. And although this is not technically a new knife, these are now discontinued, which means that we're able to sell them at a new special price. So these are going to be $139.95. That price is good while stock lasts. This is the last of them. This is your last chance to pick up what I think is either going to be a legendary blade if it isn't one already. The Becker Kukri is probably my favorite production Kukri. I think it has, well, let me share you the specs first. It's got 13¼ inches of blade, 1095 steel. They are made in the USA by K-Bar, and it's just such a perfectly proportioned example of the Kukri. It feels very fast. You know, if you've ever held some Kukris, they can feel so heavy, so weight forward, that it kind of slows them down a little bit as you're moving them. You know, you've got a lot of mass there to lever up and back and change directions with. This has that character too. I mean, no doubt it hits hard, but just the slim and length and proportions of this thing give it a more machete-like feel, even though it's thick like a true fixed blade should be. Of course, you've got Becker's characteristic handle here, unchanged from the BK9, the BK7. They all use these handles. In this case, it's a great thing. It's one of the best handles you can get on any fixed blade, really, because it just works. The injection molding allows a very complex and highly refined shape to be achieved, even at production scale and price. So yeah, if you don't like these plastic versions, you can also upgrade to micarta scales, which are also available on the site. They are gonna cost you for the upgrade, but you know, it's there for those who want it. Personally, I've never minded the plastic scales. I just think this handle locks you in so well, despite the lack of texture. I've never felt the need to upgrade. You can definitely choke back on this as well. You know, get 2 fingers around it, maybe a lanyard, if you really want to chop with it. But the way the weight is distributed in this thing, it's got a natural choppiness even without choking back on it. Yeah, whether you're using this for yard work or camping, or you know, even pushing it to its limits as a bushcraft tool, doing things like as a draw knife, there's a lot of capability here in this Kukri, and I'm gonna be sad when they're gone. So get one now while you have a chance. Okay, before we get to the sharpeners at the end of the table, we've got a bunch of new fixed blades from a relatively new brand to talk about. These are all from APOC, and they are designed by Mike Wallace and Andrew Demko. Pretty cool to see APOC collaborating with such renowned fixed blade designers as those two. This right here is the Wallace Bowie. It comes in at $106.95. We've got 9.6 inches of D2 steel, full tang construction, contoured G10 scales, and boy, it may be a full flat ground blade, but it feels very beastly. It's thicker even than that Becker Kukri, so we've got a lot of mass here to work with. Mike Wallace always has a nice kind of oversized feel to his handle ergonomics. I quite like it. As you can see, plenty to work with there. Even got a finger choil if I want to get up here and work in a little bit more balanced position. Let's see, in fact, yeah, it looks like the balance point is just right there in front of the guard. Yeah, a little tricky to balance because it truly is right at the end of the handle. But in that choked up grip, that nice balance is going to make this a good one tool option for those who are interested in such a thing. You know, you've got plenty of length to get your batoning done, some chopping, but yeah, Gonna be able to tackle some small stuff too and not fatigue too much, because you're not gonna be fighting the blade as you're, carving with it or what have you. Pretty neat design here. And yeah, love to see some new designs from Mike Wallace. Next up, the Demko Rhino Hybrid. Now this is a wild one. I was actually expecting it to be bigger when I first saw the pictures on the site. Not to say this is small by any stretch. I just, you see Demko, you see something this crazy, you expect you expect it to be...
There's a sense of scale implied.
Exactly. But what we do have here is 6 inches of D2 steel, a same overall specs, milled G10 handles, and a price of $131.95. Boy, a little bit of the carcass splitter in this, wouldn't you say, Thomas?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Emphasis on little.
Little. It'd be like a squirrel splitter, maybe, we could say. But it's bigger than a lot of kitchen cleavers, that's for sure.
Bigger kitchen.
Yeah, look out behind me. I think, I was struggling to understand what this horn could be used for other than just looking crazy until I remembered the Woodsman's Pal. Maybe, I know you've taken B-roll of it at some point, Thomas, but maybe you can show kind of what I'm talking about, because it also has a bit of a hook on the top side of the blade there, and it makes it very useful for brush clearing tasks and that sort of stuff. Anytime you want to grab something and not necessarily cut it out of the way. You could also use it for digging. Heck, breaking things open, that's going to be a force concentrator for sure. I bet you could even split some logs just with this alone, Crack that into it, watch them spring open. It's going to make it a little tricky to baton. Should you wish to do that with this blade, you're going to have to stay in of that hook. But boy, look at that thing. It's going to be fun to figure out how to use that, and I think you'll find it surprisingly useful. I like that the grind here is also sort of true to its cleaver inspiration. We've got a low, flat grind, makes it nice and wedgy behind the edge, but in a good way. It's not going to be the world's best carver, but heck, you can see how it looks. That's not what it's for. This is going to chop and split and smash, hook and cleave and hammer, all those forceful adjectives. That's what this thing's for. Oh, let's talk about the sheath real quick. In this case, it's got a nice Kydex. Locks in. It's one of those top loading sheaths. Comfortable nylon belt sheath to keep it there, and a retention loop to keep it from swinging away from you on your hip. Nice drop loop there to keep it on your belt, and a little retention strap to keep everything, oops, this way. Wait, this way. There we go. Got it all buttoned up. It's a nice package here for sure. Okay, the last 2 knives I'm going to talk about together. They are both designed by Mike Wallace, and they are both Puukkos. So, the very descriptively named large Puukko and the small Puukko. I'm going to go ahead and talk about the large one just for the sake of the camera, but basically everything I can say is going to be the same, but smaller for the small one, including the price. So we've got $73.95 here. The small one's going to be $61.95. They both have a flat grind with a secondary bevel. So not exactly the Scandinavian grind of something like that GiantMouse Nimbus, but definitely very capable as an outdoors tool. Full tank construction, sculpted smooth G10 handles, and Kydex sheaths all around. There's a cool kind of mix of some modern kind of almost tactical design happening with the handle, but a very true to form Puukko profile with the blade here. There's more ergonomic features on this handle. than a traditional Puukko. You've got a little bit of a guard here, kind of a finger groove here, some swell and a bit of a fishtail. All well implemented, all very comfortable, nicely proportioned, plenty of room to move around on it still. You know, that handle is not oversized, but still hand-filling enough to make it comfortable in something like a, you know, chest lever grip, all those good bushcraft things. And the blade shape's gonna deliver that Puukko kind of do-it-all character with a good amount of belly here, a flat spine for striking a fire steel, scraping, and then just a nice flat portion of the edge for all-around cutting. You know, I would recommend this, especially the large one, as just sort of a do-it-all camp knife. If you were really, really looking for a dedicated carver, a traditional Puukko would probably serve you better, but as an all-arounder, I really like this large Puukko here. And let me show you the sheath too, because the sheath also has a little bit of extra stuff going on. This one's for the small, but you can see it comes with an attachment clip. It's got a fire steel here. Let's take it out. Nice little fire steel with a Kydex handle, actually, kind of cool. And then a diamond sharpener on the top of the sheath there. It's like been riveted into the sheath, so it's a really stable platform to touch your edge up on, and it's gonna always be with you as long as you have your knife in the sheath. Yeah, I dig this package, and for 60 or 70 bucks, I hope it gets used at a lot of campsites and adventures out there, because I think it'd do great. Okay, let's make some room, because we've got big old sharpeners to talk about. This is kind of big news, actually. This is the redesigned Edge Pro Apex. I've been around in the knife industry long enough to remember when the Edge Pro Apex first came out. At the time, it was, I don't know, maybe revolutionary is a little too strong of a word, but for the at-home sharpener, it offered a ton of advantages that other systems just couldn't touch, right? You had a really stable base with a fixed angle that allowed you to combine kind of the flexibility of freehand sharpening with the repeatability of a fixed angle system. This new version just takes that original concept and pushes it even further. They're still 100% made in the USA, which is always great to see. And they've incorporated a lot of little tweaks and you know, user feedback and improvements over the years to make an even better system. One thing that's always been cool about the Edge Pro series is that they've been a bit open source in a way. The way that these stones mount, so you've got this spring here at the handle, you just kind of pull this plate back. These have become something of an industry standard, so you're not stuck with the stones that Edge Pro gives you out of the box. Excellent stones, but you can go crazy. You can find, you know, Japanese water stones mounted like this. You can find resin bonded diamond, flat diamond plates, kind of anything you want to try and use in your sharpening setup will work with the Edge Pro. Unlike most, well, really, unlike all other fixed angle sharpening systems on the market, the Edge Pro does not use a clamp. It uses this platform. Let's use my knife in the pocket just as an example. Spyderco Techno 2 today. It's gonna be a little tricky because you're meant to mount or clamp this to your table, but magnets now hold this in place. And then you adjust this little bar here to support the blade in a consistent position. You stabilize the knife with one hand and sharpen with the other. That's all there is to it. You adjust the angle with this bar right here. We've got some color-coded rings that correspond with different angles. And yeah, away you go. This is the kind of their entry-level system, but it feels very, very solid thanks to this aluminum base. You can get it in a bunch of different kits with more or less kind of accessories and stones. think they start at around 230. Yeah, I mean, the advantage of not using the clamp here, it's a little more hands-on during the sharpening process. You know, you do have to brace the knife with one hand and turn it manually, but you can fix problems as you go along. You know, one of really the biggest drawback with the clamp-based systems is once you're clamped in and you kind of get going, like, you better hope you set that angle right, because you've been grinding away at that one angle and it's a little tricky to fix it once you've gone too far. With this, you know, you can see easily what's happening. You can kind of adjust with your hand if you need to see if you're off a little bit. You can feel as you're going. You got more feedback. I really like the Edge Pro for that. There's a bit more skill involved, but only a tiny bit. You know, it still holds your angle consistent and allows you to really, really focus on the apex. And it's cool to see them upgrading this after all these years. And an even bigger upgrade is the new BevelTech. That is this thing. So same philosophy as the other sharpener. You know, same system here, if you will. You've got the adjustment rod for the angle here, the platen to put your knives on, magnet in there to hold everything steady, adjustable support rail here, same mounting system for the stones. But on this version, everything is metal. You got a lot more weight to it, definitely a higher feeling of precision, a lot more smoothness in the operation of this arm, and an adjustable angled base. And this is actually really nice because, you know, once you get this mounted to your your workstation here, you can change the angle that you're working with to match whatever angle you want to set to the knives, so that, you know, it's most comfortable and ergonomic for you. If you have a lot of knives you need to sharpen, that little adjustment is going to allow you to be more repeatable, more comfortable, get your work done faster. And yeah, other than that, it's the same kind of great Edge Pro, made in the USA, just better than ever. So this BevelTech system is a bit more expensive. It starts at $435, but even that kind of entry-level price for the BevelTech includes a bit more of the accessories than the original. Comes with more stones, comes with the you know, adjustable base. It's a very complete set to get you started. Well, that's it for this week's installment of New Knives of the Week. I've been Seth V. That's Thomas behind the camera. And remember that if you want any of these knives, there are links in the description to take you over to our website where you'll see everything that's still in stock. And don't forget about our new Sezzle payment option, which allows you to split up a larger knife purchase into smaller installments, but get your knife right away. Thanks again. We'll see you next week.